Okay. It is generally said that 80% of all the information we get is through our eyes. The charm of photography is its ability to capture and retain what one can see. At the outset, let me convey that I have held the camera very close to me and have largely documented personal incidents, personal experiences that have led me to bigger essays and then subject of my shows. In other words, I have taken time out to work for myself. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through how even personal experiences can be subject for creating essays. This journey has helped me evolve as a photographer. When I first started doing pictures in the late 80s, the most obvious thing for me was to document my environment. The streets where I grew up, the beach where I went as a child, the temples in the vicinity, the horse stables in the neighborhood, old age homes down the lane, visiting Mother Teresa's Ashadhan, etc. I would go around shooting discreetly. At the same time, I think I was also trying to overcome the fear of walking on Bombay streets with my camera. The late Dom Moraes, with whom I worked, liked what I shot. He introduced me to the director at the British Council Division, Mr. Rex Baker. Echoes from Bombay was my first show in the year 1992. The show, because it was being held at the British Council, was very well received. What started as a personal documentation ended up as an exhibition at a prestigious gallery. It kind of gave me an impetus to do future projects. Now that I had a steady job as a photographer with Madhya Publications, the next best thing any mother would do is to try and find a match for her son. I saved her that agony and introduced her to a girl who now happens to be my wife. We got engaged, and now I had a new woman in my life. Subconsciously, I started observing women in different roles. This led me to my next project, Faces Indian Woman. There were tender moments, and there were instances where they came out strong in character. This show helped me understand my woman in a much better perspective. 3 years of courting, and it was time to get married. I was looking for a simple wedding, and we opted for a mass marriage. We were 7 couples tying the knot. I like the idea of a mass marriage, where you are with your near and dear ones. My marriage made me look for other mass marriages in India. And let me tell you that mass marriages is a photographer's delight. There is chaos, there is color, and there's so much energy in the air. The whole atmosphere is charged during those few hours. And the best part was, I could relate to what the groom was going through at that point of time. Bechara. I was born and married into a Bohra family. It's a small community which is headed by a head priest called Sayyidna. It's a very close and a complex community, little modern, little orthodox. And there's never been any serious effort to document them. It's one of my ongoing projects that I take up when I have nothing else on my plate. I have documented the Bohras for a while now, and there is a lot more to do. My late mom would really get excited when I would come back and show her the pictures of Sayyidna and her community. She felt I was doing something worthwhile being a photographer. From the little money we were able to save from not spending lavishly on a wedding, we were able to buy a first house in a distant suburbs of Bombay, Goregaon. That meant traveling by train to town every day, something we both had never done ever. We both were born and brought up in town. But this train travel gave me an insight into how Bombay travels. And I started documenting the same. I had my next project lined up, TRACKS-BOMBAY'S LIFELINE. Day in and day out, I would travel with the crowd. I would travel in the luggage compartment. I would travel with the dabbawalas, play music with the bhajan singers, travel in between the compartments, and on few occasions on top of the compartment. I would also walk along the tracks and see the families living close to the tracks. There was a small world living around tracks. The one thing that I learned being a commuter in Bombay is to adjust. If you could adjust as a train commuter in Bombay, then one can easily adjust in any part of the world. 3 years into marriage, and we were planning to start a family. While my wife was pregnant, I happened to visit Kamadipura, Bombay's red light district. It was an office assignment. I was soon going to be a father, so I was observing the children in the area. Though on that day I rushed back to file pictures, I went again to the area, but this time without a camera. And time permitting, I would keep visiting Kamadipura. I would walk the bylanes of Kamadipura, sometimes play with the children, buy them a candy, buy them a balloon. This went on for 6 months. By now, I was noticed by all, and few of the commercial sex workers would also address me as Dadi because of my little beard. From then, I was one of the many social workers operating in the area. After 6 months, I went with my camera and gradually started shooting the children. This became the subject of my next show, Children of Kamadipura. The most striking aspect of the story was the fact that while we would want our small children to be back in a home after dark, but there the children had to stay out after dark. Sad, but true. Most of them would be on the streets, and many of them would find shelter at a nearby NGO called Prerna. We were blessed with twin daughters, and as luck would have it, they were born on August 19th, World Photography Day. Someone up there has been very kind to me. He has given me a lifelong subject document. In the year 1994, Aishwarya and Shushmita won Miss World and Miss Universe respectively. This win changed the way mothers looked at their teenage daughters. It was a craze in those days for every mother to get a portfolio done of a teenage daughter, a primary requirement to enter any contest. On an average, I would get 1 call a week from friends, distant relatives, portfolio managers, ad agencies. Since I could never get around doing a portfolio, I would excuse myself and refer them to fashion photographers. All this craze led me to my next show, Guts and Glory. I would end up going to every contest in the town. Mind you, there were many. There would be Miss Teenage, Miss Intercollege, Miss State, Miss Universe, Miss Mumbai, Miss India, etc. I wanted to meet these teenage girls up close, so I decided to peep backstage to see the aspiration for that crown. This was my first experience of shooting glamour, of course, in my own way. I was at the crossroad of turning 40. As the graying made its presence felt, friends and relatives urged me to start looking towards religious part. Time to undo my past deeds, mend my ways. Never knew I had done anything vile in my life. Several suggestions would be offered. Start praying, go for pilgrimage, perform Hajj, etc. These suggestions led me to discover the concept of faith in different religions and regions. I traveled across and documented mankind's association with faith and discovered how each in their own way expressed their belief. Well, many times it amazed me. Some beliefs left me shocked, and few even touched me. I was a silent spectator, not making any judgments, but simply documenting. Today, 40 behind me, I am still at a crossroad. There was one subject that I always wanted to work: Bombay's film industry. While I was on a job, I knew I would never be able to work on this subject because it meant spending a lot of time on the sets. So when I quit my magazine job, this was the first assignment I latched onto. Having born and brought up and now decaying in Bombay, the Bombay film industry is so much part of you. Every day, you're bombarded with news, gossips, radio, TV, newspaper, magazines. They're all over you. It seems you just can't have enough of it. I too wanted to be part of this world, though for a very short time. This was silver screen for me. The one brief that I gave myself was that I would shoot candid on the sets. I wanted to work on the periphery, and I spent the longest time doing this project, almost 4 years. On the sets, I became a still dada, and probably the only person not being paid to be on the sets. Well, silver screen led me to beyond silver screen. A look at how we Indians have fascination with the filmy world. Once I started looking, I found them all around. Apart from the billboards, I could find them in restaurants, on kites, in gyms, in rickshaws, screensavers, etc. Some were using them as decoration, some to lure customers, while others were showing their affection to the idols. It was funny, but real. To me, this was silver screen away from the sets. I am now a father of teenage girls. One day, I found myself in a parlor with my girls, who were there to wax their legs. They're just teens, but the argument was, "Dad, how can we go for a swim? How can we play basketball? How can we wear skirts?" They had a point. Talking to them made me realize that grooming legs for those young girls was indeed a big deal. This then is the subject of my next project, Singing Legs. I looked around and found that girls would go to any length to tone their legs, shape them, and of course, wax them regularly. It's important for these girls to step out with confidence. It is this part of the anatomy that the girls don't mind flaunting, if that would help them stand tall in the society and in the world of glamour. I have been looking at young girls' legs for more than 2 years now. And believe me, at this age, it does seem a bit awkward. Well then, this has been my journey of over 2 decades. The one point I would like to make is that all these essays that I've worked for are deeply rooted in my personal experiences. I can sum up with conviction that it has been indeed a wonderful journey, a journey that taught me to be discreet and get images, be friendly and get images, adopt to the environment and get images, be patient and get images, be persistent and get images. At the end, what really matters is that one frame that will really stand out. I'm sure everyone in the audience have a personal experience to share, just that some prefer to talk, some prefer to write, while I prefer to say it through pictures, through my pictures. So friends, what's stopping you all from doing the same? And finally, given the nature of competition in photo practices, the deplorable conditions of visual acceptance, the advent of digital and Photoshop, what is at great risk today is the effort of a photographer. Thank you.